High on a granite ridge in the Cascades, there is a tiny glass box on stilts, barely 14 feet square, where a person once sat alone for an entire summer, watching for the first thin curl of smoke. No road reaches it. No power line feeds it. The only way up is a trail that climbs for hours and a final staircase bolted straight into the rock. And here is the part almost nobody expects. You can sleep up there. Some of these towers rent for less than the cost of a chain motel. A few, in rare and quiet transactions, can actually be bought. Scattered across the American West, perched on summits most people will never climb, are decommissioned fire lookout towers that have quietly become the strangest, most beautiful pieces of real estate in the country. For most of the 20th century, these towers were the eyes of the forest. After catastrophic wildfires tore through the northern Rockies in the early 1900s, the government launched a building campaign that would eventually scatter more than 8,000 lookouts across America's wildlands. Each one was staffed by a single watcher, sometimes for months at a time, armed with binoculars, a map, a radio, and a strange instrument called a fire finder that could pinpoint a column of smoke from 40 miles away. Then came airplanes, then satellites, then infrared cameras that never blink and never get lonely. The towers became obsolete. Thousands were burned, dismantled, or simply abandoned to the weather. But a few hundred survived, and the people who loved them refused to let them rot. Today we are climbing up to 7 of them, the ones you can rent, the rare ones you can own, and grading each on the things that actually matter up there. The view, the access, the comfort, the solitude, and the sheer improbability of the whole thing. And if you stick around, this is the first episode in a brand new series where we track down the most unlikely places a person can legally live in America. And what we found floating off the coast of Maine for the next episode genuinely should not exist. So make sure you are subscribed. We start in Central Oregon at the Ball Butte Lookout. This one sits at the end of a forest road that your tires will tolerate, but never forgive, and it is one of the easiest in the entire rental program to reach. A squat little cab on a short tower, it sleeps 4, comes with a propane stove and a wood heater, and rents for around $50 a night. The view runs clear across the high desert to the snow cone of a distant volcano. It is humble, it is unglamorous, and it is the perfect first taste of what living in a glass box on a mountain actually feels like. Next, we drive deep into the Bitterroot country of Montana to the McCart Lookout. Built in the 1930s, this is the postcard version, a classic cabin perched on a tall timber tower with a wraparound catwalk and 100 miles of wilderness in every direction. There is no running water and no electricity. There is a wood stove, a propane lamp, and a sky at night so thick with stars that first-time visitors often describe it as physically overwhelming. You haul your own water up the stairs, you pack out your own trash, and in exchange, you get a silence so complete that you can hear your own heartbeat. Our third stop is the Gerd Point Lookout, also in Montana, and this one earns its keep on solitude alone. The road in is rough enough that the rangers genuinely recommend a high-clearance vehicle, and the last stretch is the kind of drive where you start narrating your own will out loud. But once you arrive, you are sitting at nearly 7,000 feet, completely alone, watching weather systems build and break across ranges that most Americans will never see. There is something almost spiritual about the isolation. There is also a very real chance you will spend a sleepless night convinced every creek is a bear. Both things are part of the deal. Fourth, we head to the Pacific Northwest to a tower I will keep loosely located because the people who care for it are protective, and rightly so. This is one of the high-elevation glass cabs that requires a real hike to reach. Miles of switchbacks with your bedding and food strapped to your back. When you finally crest the ridge, the lookout appears like a lighthouse that wandered up a mountain by mistake. On a clear evening, you can watch the sun set over one range while the moon rises over another. It is, without exaggeration, one of the most beautiful places a person can legally sleep in the lower 48. Fifth, and this is where things get interesting, we look at the privately owned ones, because not every lookout stayed in government hands. When the Forest Service decommissioned towers, a small number were sold off, relocated, or rebuilt on private land by people who simply could not bear to watch them disappear. There is a famous example in Idaho where an enthusiast bought a surplus cab, trucked it down the mountain in pieces, and reassembled it on his own property as a guest house. These transactions almost never appear on a normal real estate website. You find them through preservation groups, through word of mouth, through a phone call to someone who knows someone. And when one does come up for sale, it moves fast, because the people who want a fire lookout have usually wanted one their entire lives. Sixth, we visit a restored historic lookout that has been lovingly brought back to its original 1940s condition, complete with the original firefinder still mounted on its pedestal in the center of the room. Staying here feels less like a vacation and more like time travel. The volunteers who restored it spent years hauling materials up by mule and helicopter, repairing the catwalk by hand, and replacing glass one pane at a time. When you stand inside at dusk, with the lamp lit and the wind pressing against the windows, you are standing exactly where a young watcher stood 80 years ago, scanning the same horizon for the same enemy. That continuity is worth more than any luxury finish. And finally, our seventh, the one that wins. It is a high alpine lookout, reachable only by a serious trail. A tower that combines the dramatic view of the Northwest Cabs with the deep solitude of the Montana peaks and the historic soul of the restored ones. You climb for the better part of a day. You arrive sweating and a little humbled. And then you step inside, set down your pack, and watch the entire visible world catch fire in the sunset. There is no plumbing. There is no power. There is nothing between you and the sky but a thin shell of glass and the work of people who refuse to let it fall. For the effort, the view, and the sheer impossibility of being there at all, it is unmatched. So here is the honest verdict. If you want easy, take the Oregon cab and ease yourself into the experience. If you want that perfect catwalk postcard, the Montana Classic delivers. If you want to actually own one, start making phone calls now, because they almost never reach the open market. But if you want the single most extraordinary night this entire strange category of real estate has to offer, it is the high alpine tower at the end of the hardest trail, the one that makes you earn every inch of the view. What is remarkable about all of these is what they represent. A vanished profession, a forgotten chapter of how this country tried to protect its forest, and a handful of stubborn preservationists who turned obsolete watchtowers into something almost sacred. The lookouts were built to watch for the end of the world by fire. Now they exist to remind a few lucky people what the world looks like when you finally climb high enough to see all of it. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, consider subscribing so you do not miss future videos.